I was part of those
Right.
absolutely nuts people, and we're not paid. It's just a whole different.
Well, these have been. They've been
They're not
listed.
I know exactly who the people are.
By
I know
who?
the whole park. Basically.
Were they being paid?
I stayed there for 2 months.
They're being paid ultimately. I would assume it's been brought up by corporation, by big corporate.
What people
too.
are
What, to make Occupy look bad?
To make Occupy look bad, I think the people that originally
They've been
started
throwing feces.
breaking laws in Oakland were paid fines.
Yeah.
They were.
I mean, that's a standard American procedure for corporations. They've been doing that
Well,
since.
that's COINTELPRO. I mean, that's.
The Freedom Plaza group wasn't even Occupy. The original Occupy group in DC is the one in McPherson Square. Those
Right.
are, so to speak, the real occupiers. And maybe one or two of them have been paid. But yeah, you're right. We do scream, let's go to the White House, and we'll all march to the White House. But that's because in DC, it's completely legal, even if you only have 2 people, to get in the streets and march to the White House. And the cops have to escort you. So we'll do random actions in the middle of the night, just because we're spontaneous and hyped up, not because. And I'm not trying to discredit him, but there's probably been some people paid off. But I stayed there for 2 months, and I keep going
I'm
back.
sure there are people who are
Yeah.
paid off, but at the same time, we cannot allow paranoia.
Exactly. And the
No,
Freedom
that's why
Plaza
there's
group.
transparency. We don't need to hide what we're doing.
And in fact, Freedom Plaza is
Very
actually
upfront
moving to
about it.
McPherson because they've been kicked out of Freedom Plaza. The groups are about to combine into one centralized group in McPherson.
Which I figured was going to happen.
Yeah, because they were kicked out of Freedom because
Well, just from the logistics where the 2 places are,
yeah, they're
it
like
just
a block
makes-
apart.
it just made sense that they would come together.
Moving back to Wilmington, though, I guess just in terms of my observations is that, if groups, they want to separate, that's, obviously decisions to be made, but I think in this instance there's a problem when 2 actions were done and
We're not coordinated.
not coordinated. So there needs to be at least some level of communication. So I think the first thing that needs to be done is some sort of
Yeah.
But you put it out there. I mean, it was out there.
I've been trying. We're not even just in. We've been talking about white checking banks for 4 weeks now. Even when they were part of the group and there was no WOW group made, I've been talking about getting this information and doing it. Not that I'm saying it's my idea. I was saying, and I called Roberta today and I called Kate and I was like, we'd like to do this with y'all. Can we do it? And they're like, yeah, let's do it tomorrow. And we'll wait and do it tomorrow. But then meanwhile, while they were telling me this, they were telling him to make sure I didn't do it today. So we went ahead and did it because they
So
obviously were not. Yeah.
That's the non-transparency that I just don't have.
I tried my
place
hardest.
in my heart for it, because if we can't be proud of what we're doing, if we can't believe in what we're doing, and if we can't do it in the open, is it really worth doing? I mean, that's my attitude. I can see the need for not necessarily putting an action on Facebook,
Right.
So,
but I
yeah.
can't see the benefit of us not communicating with each other. I just
Yeah,
can't.
everything doesn't have to go on Facebook.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it can be private messaged. If you want to do a surprise mic check, you don't put it out on Facebook.
Yeah.
Well, one group
Everybody
lying
in
to
the
the other
world-
group saying,
everybody in
setting
the
them
world.
up for.
Yeah, but the problem we've had recently is we've even had people cutting and pasting private messages, and we can't have that if we're going to run a credible organization. And so I think our last 3 meetings have been very productive,
They have
4 counting this one, because I think those of us that are here regularly have resolved to be positive about what we're doing. And I'm personally, the next time I'm attacked on Facebook, I'm just going to admit defeat. I'm going to shut up and go elsewhere.
That's what I do. I don't want to fight with anybody. I will just ignore it from here on out
Because that way the people that are arguing and fighting will be listening to themselves before it's all over with, and nobody else will be communicating. And I think that's our best way to draw the venom, is to just not participate.
Well, if you feel like you have to respond to something, write it all down and then walk away from the computer before you hit enter.
Yeah, and think
That is such
that
And go back 15 minutes later and reread it, and if you still feel the same way, edit it a little bit and send it. But it's amazing what 15 minutes away from the computer can do for your head.
well, we just got to realize that the issue we're fighting is so much bigger than we are, that we don't have room for personal animosities to get involved in this struggle, because it's going to be all we can do if we stick together.
I think in any
To solve the
movement,
problem.
in any movement, in any organization, that there are there's bickering and fighting, and I think that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's an unhealthy thing.
No, but it doesn't have to be public.
Right. I mean, when I joined the Facebook page, the open Facebook page, I mean, there was a lot of open hostility there. And it was, you know, pretty frightening. And I think someone, you know, I mean, I've been doing civil rights work and, you know, women's work for many, many, many years.
Oh, really?
I've been out of the loop for about 15 years, you know, raising a
I
kid.
think that's the
doing
last
other
time I
things.
saw you.
Probably. But anyway, I mean, you know, it was just a little bit disturbing to see what was going on the open page.
That's
And
why
then-
if you got a problem with somebody, go private with it, you know, I mean, but it's really better
Well,
to just,
part of it though, Ron, if you go private, okay, you've got someone who's very intense and aggressive. And you have to be careful how you frame these things. Sometimes it's better to just be out in the open, you know, face to face with the group or people, so that you can get it all out for everybody to see. If it's two people doing it privately, then there is no transparency. It's just those two, he said, she said.
okay, then we handle it, you know, the problem
It depends on the
is,
situation.
the problem is when you're on Facebook, we've got to remember that it's not just us looking at that page.
Right, it's.
There are many people that are not
800
affiliated with the group that are just curious that come in and look at it. And so in a situation like that, I'd rather set aside 15 minutes after a GA and air the dirty linen at a GA
But, you know,
than to
frankly,
do
some
it.
of those people should be banned off the public page for posting. I
Well-
mean, I haven't seen any outbursts recently.
We've
but-
tried not to censor the page, but we're looking closely at what other groups are doing, because it does get away from the central focus of what Occupy is all about. And many of us are wondering,
Well, that's why we made the discussion
do we
page.
need to get our page back on
Right,
track?
I mean, the discussion page was there, people were discussing stuff, things
Yeah.
got intense, and I was banned, and I think that was really wrong. You know, I've requested twice to be on that page, and, you know, you guys have not been able to do that. And you know who I find is responsible for that are the 5 administrators of that page.
I haven't kicked anybody out.
I'm not sure who the
Well, I know
administrator
who
is.
kicked me out,
I kicked her out.
yeah, he did.
Yeah, I did.
I gotta be
I
honest.
mean, I don't think you really read through all my posts. I think, you know, I was very, very strong in my opinion.
I was
But it
active
certainly
in the whole
doesn't
thing.
mean that I've been disrespectful to anyone. I mean, not at all.
The-
I'm a
the
very, very,
problem-
you know, very, very opinionated woman, and there's nothing wrong with that.
The problem that I see, the problem that I see with Facebook, and we've talked about this before, is that it's very easy to misinterpret things you see and read.
Right,
You cannot hear someone's inflection or tone.
right.
You cannot see their body language. You don't know if two people that are posting have some kind of joke that they've been doing, and it may look bad, but it may be like really not one person attacking another. It may appear that way.
Like when Julie said she was going to beat her husband. Or beat whoever, whatever. That's just Julie's personality. She's not really going to go beat somebody up for talking crap about
So
her.
But the people
But
she's
you know,
talking
how
to
would
might
I
not
know
know
that?
that her husband is ill, you know, I mean,
Yeah, how would I know
the
that?
thing,
yeah,
the-
we don't,
I
that's
know,
it.
I didn't know that.
Well,
It
you
says
don't,
you
that's
can't
the
see
point.
the inflection.
That's what we're
And
saying.
know
But
the
you know,
inflection.
it's still, it is what it is. It's a statement of violence, and we have to remember, where did we come from? How many of us have been victims of violence? You know, have you been raped? Have you been abused? I mean, how many?
Yeah, I have been abused actually.
Okay, well, I mean, you know, you could, but you have to understand that, you know, this imagery of violence in this movement, it's not appropriate.
And I think this is something, I know we got sidetracked talking about Facebook. I think it's something that needs to be done in person, in a group setting, outside of a GA structure, because I think it leads into, you know, people trying to communicate with these other people today, but there's been so much rancor that there's no way to have those proper lines of communication if you are just trying to disseminate
See, that,
information.
I agree with you 100%, but that's why I've been so upset about the F word and the C word and all the other words I've seen. It's not because I don't use them, because sometimes I do. But whenever I'm in a group that I know that children might see it,
Right.
or if I'm trying to influence someone like my mother, you know, my mother will hear the F word one time and it doesn't matter what else is said. You know, she doesn't hear anything.
I agree with the
And so we have to be very careful how we talk.
the discussion page. It shouldn't matter how anybody.
Yeah, it's a closed page.
Yeah, the closed page is one thing. The open page is something entirely different.
I do want to
And-
separate this out though just a little bit, because what I'm trying to get at is, you know, my observation is that 4 to 6 people who were very involved are no longer involved.
Right.
And there hasn't been a communication with those folks in a sit-down, structured,
Yeah.
polite, reasonable manner before. It's that they've gone and we haven't been able to talk to them. So I think that needs to happen, and they may not come back, but there needs to be some sort of conversation in person as individuals who have maybe strong beliefs but be able to share them. That needs to be done outside of a GA, because a GA has so much loaded emotions now because everyone's experienced them. So I would be interested in, I mean, I feel since I've been involved more with the process and facilitation side of things, would be comfortable in trying to put something like that together.
We do that, because I think everybody sees you as extremely neutral.
Well, let me do this again, because that's sort of where we're headed.
Yeah.
So,
and if it can't happen until January, but just to think through that.
I don't think it's going to happen until January, because people are out of town.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But just that we think about that before we, continue to raise all these points, because people, are coming from different perspectives, but we need to sit down and address them before we continue making allegations and pointing fingers still, because we all come with a set of baggage. So.
I hope you don't think I was pointing fingers. I'm just saying
No.
we need to nicen our communication skills on the public page.
Yeah, on Facebook, that's, I think, a different conversation from what I was trying to have.
Right.
So that, is completely
Would you
different.
be willing to set up something?
Yeah, I think Peter had expressed interest in working on something.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, so we can continue to do that.
On the Facebook thing, and going back to what Craig said at our GA a couple of days ago, I've been alerted to Occupy Waller's Facebook page, and it's really neat the way they have it set up. The only person who can make a central post is an administrator. You send an administrator, and they have a series of administrators who are constantly monitoring. You send an administrator what you want to post, and that gets put up on the page, and then people are allowed to comment. Not just anybody's allowed to post, only the administrator is. But once the post is up there, anybody can comment. So that keeps it nice and clean, and keeps it on topic.
Yeah, and I kind of see the need for that if we can't control it. I don't like that. To me, that's a form of
It should
censorship,
be that way anyway.
and I don't like that.
It's not
but
censorship.
if we have
Ron.
to,
Right on the right
Yeah.
is like the any post button, and you can read all of the things just like we have it. It's not taken away.
yeah.
It's just that you have to go to that to see all of that.
Okay.
Well, you have
What
to
it-
go to the discussion page to see all that. Roxanne already has the page y'all are talking about.
Yeah.
She has the page, which only she can do it, and it has all her events on it,
Right.
and you can comment on it. She has the page made, and about 70 people liked it, so.
Yeah, but instead of our 900 and some members, you've got, a little subgroup, which is what our discussion page is. I mean, it only has to be one group,
That's
And
the same page
it
you're
just-
talking about,
It
right?
just keeps it on
No,
top.
you're talking about the events page.
Yeah, well, still, it's just another subset of our larger group.
Right.
Right. It may not be a bad idea to contemplate making the official page like that, where it's posted by an administrator. That's the way Occupy Atlanta does it. So many other
Occupy
places.
Orlando too.
And then if someone is coming in and it's their first time checking out Occupy Wilmington,
They
they're
don't
going to
see
see
a bunch of stuff.
something that's very neat, very organized,
Very
and
clean.
then good.
Then we can open them up to hell.
Yeah, then we can invite them
Then-
to the group.
If you really want to go to hell, click this button.
I agree. That's why we made the discussion. That's what me and Roxanne talked about and made the discussion page. Was for regular members in the group to be invited to hell to debate each other out, where most of us. That's why there's only like
That's
how
why
many
the
people in?
pictures.
Well, what benefit is that when you ban somebody from out of the group? when
Because
they're
you had never been in the
discussing
group and you were offering up drug tests and it looked like you were bitching on every other thing we were
You-
saying.
you know,
I'll just be
yeah,
honest.
because you were presuming things. You know what I was talking about
Can-
is just doing a. I didn't say anything about a drug test.
Oh.
I said a criminal background check to weed out the violent types.
Well, I don't think
I
we
didn't
should have
say
background checks.
anything about a drug test. I don't believe in that
Who's
anyway.
paying for is the background.
And I don't agree in background. I don't believe in background checks. This
Well,
movement
listen,
doesn't
if
excuse it.
you're going to be in someone's house, honey, and there are children in that house, and one of those kids gets abused, how are you, as a corporation, a nonprofit? I mean,
Well,
let's
we're
look
not-
at it legally. You know,
I'm
I'm saying in the future. I know not. Yeah, I'm not. Call me the devil's advocate if you want to. I mean, I have the best interest of this, corporation or whatever it is, nonprofit in mind.
But
I'm
where do
just
you-
looking at it in terms of how are you gonna protect, how are you gonna have, public safety for the children in the homes that are being occupied?
Not with a police officer, I like to say, you know.
No, well, they shoot pit bulls as soon as they walk in the door, so no, I agree with you there.
Well,
But I'm
you know,
saying
my
that-
concern is that with a public organization, we can't criminal background check everybody that comes to one of our meetings. I mean, we
You
have
can
a
do-
field manual, we say what is and is not allowed, but we can't stop someone. All we can do if someone breaks our rules is try to get them to leave or call the police.
No, I'm not talking about those types. You know, like a public event is something
Yeah.
totally different. It's like having a theater event.
Yeah.
That's different. What I'm talking about is an encampment. Let's say 4 people move into this house, so it doesn't get foreclosed, right? You know?
Yeah.
We would.
You're moving in the house.
But just
children-
because it's in their history doesn't mean they're violent now.
No, no,
But
it
we
doesn't.
would be pretty
No, I
much
have a
on
criminal
their
record.
line, we wouldn't be in their home.
And
If you
I
want
think
our
this
help,
I mean,
there's
But
a-
if, all right, do you agree that it's okay for a registered sex offender to sleep on your lawn? and
Yeah, I
have
do.
3 children?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think this point
Well,
was
I
addressed
think-
at last night's
Yep.
GA, because I have 7 small children that I generally bring to this type of discussion there at dance tonight, but
Uh-huh.
I'm ultimately responsible for them. If I take them to an event where there are, you know, people that, you know,
Right.
and whether it's on the public record or not, I mean, you can be arrested at 17, almost 18 for sleeping with a 15-year. I mean, you know, there's just a lot that you can be a registered sex
I'm
offender
hearing
for.
you, I'm hearing you.
But it boils down to the individual's responsibility.
And corporate liability if you do
We don't have that.
incorporate. If you incorporate.
I'm
As a
getting kind of
nonprofit.
frustrated right now actually
Financially.
because like, and I don't get, but because we're talking about something that like it should be. This is the type of stuff that should be discussion. You know, it's not.
Right.
And I think we have a solution in mind, is which moving people, letting you back on the page, moving all this stuff into discussion, having an administrator.
Okay, sure.
And you know, that's. I mean, honestly, I haven't been motivated enough to come because I come on the Facebook page and I see these posts and I just kind of go, oh, man, I don't know how to deal with this. There's so many issues right on that main page.
Yeah.
I just want to see points of action or GAs
Right.
scheduled.
I think that's.
No, yeah, I agree. Last week I was completely out of the loop because I didn't want to see all the bickering on Facebook, all the bickering, all the kibitzing. I want to hear something of substance, not people bitching at each other.
Yeah.
That's why I don't read it.
But you know,
I post there, I post good stuff.
But I read the good stuff, but when
Okay.
it starts to get contentious, I just walk away.
the
That's-
problem I have
that's-
I
with
don't wanna
excluding
know.
somebody based on a criminal background check is my understanding that right off the bat, somewhere between a third and a half of the black men in this country have criminal records, so you're immediately excluding.
You know.
And a lot of those people were railroaded, a lot of those people were
Right.
not guilty,
Oh, yeah, I know.
no matter
I
what
believe
their
that.
public
I
record
believe that.
says.
And you
And
know,
I have a criminal record.
well, you know, I'm not saying that you would say no to someone with a criminal background, okay? If someone, my husband had a DUI about 25 years ago. You know, would that mean that he couldn't go to an encampment, right? You know, no, that wouldn't be. What if, you know, so it's not just because someone has a criminal history. What I'm looking at weeding out are violent sex offenders from a home where, and you may want to put someone on notice. You may want to say, well, listen, this person who is a camper, wants to camp in your place, he has history when he beat up his roommate in college. He's 30 years old now. You might
Are you
even
talking
be in
about
here.
only convictions?
Most of
Yeah.
encampment is
I mean,
people
that's
that
not,
you don't
you know-
know. Encampment is homeless people. You know, the good part of it, you know, is
I'm
just
talking about
local.
foreclosure encampments.
I
Really,
understand,
not,
and I
not.
appreciate your sentiment. I really
I
do.
s-
I
I
want
say
to protect
caveat
children. I'm a
emptor.
child advocate, so I'm
I
really
I
wanting to.
respect that.
Well,
I
I mean,
appreciate
as-
that sentiment.
That's
As a child
only-
abuse advocate, I mean, I'm sure you're very aware, as I've worked in dealing with the population that were abused. There are millions of people who are abusers that never have a criminal background at all.
Right.
So,
And never convicted either.
right, and have
Right.
never, it's never even been brought to the light of day.
Because they're familiars.
Right. So then you're having a problem of, you know, no offense, Ron, but you know, someone like Ron, let's say it's not Ron, but you would never think anything of that. You
That's,
know?
I've used that argument a lot because the 3 men that came after me when I was a kid, were all Protestant, they were all married, nobody would have ever known.
Right.
You know?
And
they never got arrested for it. None of them has ever been in trouble now.
You know,
It's too
so
long
then you have a
ago for me
problem.
to say anything now, they're dead.
Right.
When I knew was a Catholic priest, so
Then,
Guys,
So, I mean, what are we to do to protect
Guys,
the
I've
children?
got to
How are we
leave.
gonna do that?
I make my
I mean,
apologies. I got to walk security at a party tonight. So.
Oh, okay.
At a party.
But how do you,
Yeah,
how do you
47th Street.
fix it then? I mean.
I don't think it's our job to fix it. I think it's kind
I'm
of.
telling you, they're a bouncer.
I think it's buyer beware.
It's,
I don't know what
it's,
to
yeah, I mean, that's
Oh, it's my time.
What about the person who's out there that's
Yeah,
saying,
we-
you know what, they're staying at somebody's house and they have children and I'm a joint occupied just so I can go hang out and with children
Well,
unattended or
first
whatever.
of all, I don't think we'd be camping in their house.
No.
We would
Be in the yard.
camping outside. Now, first of all. Number two is we're pretty good at policing ourselves.
we are.
I mean, we keep, when we were down in front of City Hall, you do get some of people that are
Hence the timeout chair.
not necessarily there for the right reasons. And, we addressed that. When it happened, we addressed it. We kept everyone in check. We looked out for one another.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, that's part of what this is about,
Yeah, it's
you know?
more of a sense of community.
It is, I mean, I've known these people for 2 months and I feel like something like their family. You know, it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's all just about community building, and like when we come face to face with each other in person, that's why I think this whole discussion about Facebook is so important that we have it right now.
People are so much more
It's a
willing
very
to
good
say
point.
negative things.
Yes.
Right,
to a
because you have the
computer.
mask. It's like wearing a Halloween mask.
Yeah.
Halloween, you use egg and use toilet paper because and trash people's, trees. I did when I was little. I was a stinker. So, but that's because I had the mask on. And Facebook is a mask. And so that's a very good point, that when you have that mask on, you're almost more free to say things,
But
less
yeah,
than
it can
diplomatic
be good
way.
it can be good for like certain things like action reports. That's why I'm saying
Yeah.
because it doesn't reflect any
Very
like,
objective.
personal aggression between people.
Right.
But when it comes to like these things, even just mentioning, like sex offenders, it comes off. It just spreads a negative energy, and I know it's important to you, and like
It is.
things like, but it's really important to a lot of people, but like bringing that into the discussion, and at any time, it excludes a lot of other people because it just
Well, I mean,
turns it off.
when Trey's
Yeah,
kids
so
are
there's
Trey's kids are around, which is most of the time, I mean, as a mother with grown kids and a grandchild, I'm constantly watching your kids, making sure that they're not running in the street, that they have their sweater on, that they're, I mean, it's just, we all kind of keep track of everyone when we're in a group, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Well, let me take this from another tack, because it's something that's been bothering me for a while. And I'm not trying to get in anybody's business or anything, but since we are going to be involved in direct actions, I think that we need to know who or who may not already have problems with the police. Because we need to know for the simple reason that if you're already in trouble, we don't want you to get arrested again. Okay? You know what I'm saying? We're trying, the group needs to, if Deb's got to go down and bail you out, she's going to need to know everything. She's going to need to get down there and find out you got 17 warrants.
Yeah, and the bail's too high.
Would this be something that, as a suggestion, people who are going to be part of the DA groups, that, you have kind of an open disclosure thing, like, hey, you're going to be part of this group, we have an open disclosure for your safety.
For your sake,
That's
exactly.
no way of
I think it
saying
should be for people to choose that if they
Right,
want
that's
to
what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we're not gonna make you sign a piece of paper, but
No,
it
we're
would
not
be
saying we
nice.
Yeah.
You're like, you know what? I got like 75 warrants out on my behind, so
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
This
But
is
we would
why
need
we
to know that, because even if for some reason you had to do it, like you were the best person to do it, nobody wants to walk down to the magistrate's office and get slapped in the face. You see what I'm saying?
And say, we're setting your.
We're on your side, so if you got
$500,000.
problems, thank you, but we need to know going in whether or not.
You don't have it, so you're gonna be sick.
Hello? It's not even about protecting other people, just to protect you.
Right, and I think that's a really
Yeah.
great way, you know, a great example, you know, for DA groups that, you know, hey, you know, we're gonna do some stuff. This might happen.
Mhm.
We need to know so that way. You
So
know,
if you've got
you're-
75 parking
right,
tickets
you're
from
one of the
downtown
ones
and a
that's
boot on
in
your car,
side.
we might need to know that.
Right.
Three failure to appears.
Hello, thank
And
you.
it was traffic violations.
A traffic violation. I'm not even talking about something bad, but you know, if you supposed to be paying these tickets and you owe the city, now that they done doubled and doubled and doubled, now you owe the city $4,962, we might need to know that.
And I also want to touch back on this thing, we keep saying corporate, but if we're going to look at it from a corporate thing, I'm not part of the corporation of Occupy Wilmington, I'm part of the Occupy movement as a whole, so I don't consider myself part of the corporation. I mean, I don't, and it, I guess the corporation has 5 board members that I guess can be liable, but I'll make sure from now on.
Technically, they're members of an organization, but the main thing that happens with direct actions with nonprofits is generally in direct actions, it's made very clear that they are individual actions, they're not group actions. And so you're acting individually when you commit civil disobedience, and that absolves a corporation. That's the way I've seen it work with every group I've ever
Do you
been in.
get people to sign statements, you know, sign waivers?
No.
No. No.
But you don't have to, because
You don't have to.
the only registered members of the corporation are the officers that are registered
Right.
with the
And
state.
as long as they're not the ones that are detained, technically the corporation.
I
has
see.
No problem. Like
Okay.
what we did DAs for, I'm part of the Planned Parenthood group. You know, as far as like flash sit-ins and stuff like that. You know, we were acting. Yes, we're under the banner, the umbrella of we're representing Planned Parenthood, but we are not Planned Parenthood. You know what I mean? Like here in North Carolina, Walter Klausheimer is Planned Parenthood. He's the man.
Okay.
But he's never directly involved in anything.
So as so the corporation is protected as long as he's not involved in
Right,
any
as long as
direct
the
action.
people who are the board, the people, you know,
Are not
are
directly
listed
involved.
are not the
Okay.
ones that are arrested. You know, any employee, you know, for instance, because Planned Parenthood has employees versus just, you know, group members. I know. But they act upon their own individual consent. So
Okay.
it's not so much like, you know, when we went in dressed as birth control, you know, or dressed in condoms, we were, you know, we got in trouble for it, but Planned Parenthood did not get in trouble for it.
Okay.
So that's
And even if you are on the
Why do you
board,
get in trouble?
I mean, think about it.
Like a condom?
Al Sharpton gets arrested all the time. Does not necessarily affect National Action Network,
Okay.
even though he is the president, CEO, and founder.
Okay.
Covered in condoms.
That was when you probably have to
Okay,
have
just
the
trying to
waiver. That's
remember.
only for a handful of people.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think it's.
So
All right.
it's not as bad as people think. People try to dream up problems where there aren't any.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the same as my son's at work for
I was just
Children's
trying to
Employees International
Yeah.
in Connecticut, and he
just
gets
had to
arrested
cross the
all the
state
time. He does.
That came out not quite. I'm sure his.
Well, it's always for civil disobedience thing, and they plan them. I mean, and the police know, and it's a planned arrest, and they get an appearance ticket and $5 bail, and everybody goes home and they show up in court and they pay $50 in fine, and then they go away. But I mean, they plan these with the cities that they do these protests in. So, you know, it's not. It doesn't. He's part of SEIU, but it doesn't affect them because he's an individual. It's an individual action.
Okay.
Because your place of employment does not negate your citizenship.
Right.
Yet.
well, yeah.
Anytime you decide to get arrested, it's a personal decision. And if you decide to sit down and block an entrance, that's not something that the group's telling you to do. It's a conscious decision that you've made. The main thing that nonprofit status does for corporations is it protects individuals from problems with the books, so to speak, because you have to track the money. And so there are only 2 ways you can track money in America. If you're a business, you have to go either nonprofit or for-profit. And so if you're gonna not incorporate as a nonprofit, then you have to be prepared to pay taxes on all the money that you bring in. So there's an advantage for an organization, especially a public education organization like us, to go nonprofit, because that way we don't have to pay taxes on the money. We still have to report it. We still have to balance the books, but we don't have to pay taxes on it. And so and plus the people that give us money can deduct it. And so that's the impetus for being nonprofit. It really has nothing to do with public action because public action is individual action.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense to me now.
Do we want to extend this meeting?
Is it 8?
It's
It's
funny.
eight.
Is it really?
Like time flies.
I'm
when you're
hungry.
having fun.
I got an announcement to make. Occupy has been officially invited to an attorney's party. We've been invited
sorry,
to,
what?
as I put it, crash the party. I think there's Mexican food, maybe even catered Lebanese or
What are we
something or
doing?
other. There's a party we've been invited to. Yeah, an attorney's party tonight, free food. Yeah.
Wait, where?
I gotta make a call. He said it. I didn't write it down. I told him I'd hit him up. It's my attorney.
Oh, across the street from
Fred
your
Jones?
house?
Yeah, Fred Jones. It's not at his house. It's downtown here somewhere. I can call him if anybody's interested. It sounds like you are. I think there's a party with food and stuff.
Do we have special beverages at this party?
Most
Special beverage.
And free drinks.
Also, I'm not sure,
God, you pause. Gosh.
I'm not sure I can make the meeting on Sunday. I have
Special
family
beverage.
coming into town. But if you wanna hold the meeting, here Sunday,
We went to the American Business College. So he was asking for a special
if it's
beverage.
freezing cold, let me know.
Maybe for business, just say we can look at it and get more.
Okay.
Yes, softball meet?
Is this uncorporate enough for you if we meet here? I know you don't like the round table thing.
Also, everybody.
Let me know.
Nathan likes
And
to
it's in a
freeze.
circle. It's in a circle.
Nathan likes to freeze.
Guys, if I like square tables. If I could also announce, we're having a large yard sale at my house tomorrow, and I've got a bunch of Christmas trees I'll be willing to donate. Also, after the yard sale's over, I've got a bunch of clothes and things for the homeless. I think I'm gonna work with
You're not gonna wait
with
any
you. I'm
other
gonna come and see you. If you're not open late night, we'll probably end at about dark. But I can give you a call and get your number down.